Hi, welcome back to the Woodshop Nerdery. I'm Tom. In this video, I'm going to explore a question about the difference between these high-speed steel 3-blade shaper cutters and the more modern carbide cutters. Anyone who has used these modern carbide cutters know that they're awesome. So is there a place for these high-speed steel cutters in my shop in the modern carbide era? Part of answering the question as to whether or not these bits have a place in my shop is trying to figure out how easy they are to sharpen. So I'm going to get out my sharpening stones and try to sharpen these high-speed steel bits to operate at their best performance. Here I've soaked the bits in a solution of simple green diluted with water. I want to get any sort of caked on dirt or baked on wood pitch off of here before I move on to the sharpening process. To begin sharpening, I'm going to mark up the inside face of my cutter with a Sharpie marker. I'll do all three faces. I'll also put a dot here so I can keep track when I get back to the starting face and therefore apply the same number of strokes to each face. I will only use my coarser stones if there's some sort of defect in one of the faces. So I'm going to go 10 strokes on each. Okay, this is what I was afraid of. You can see that I'm removing material here in this section, but not at the tips. This is a used cutter, so it could be that in the past someone has sharpened only the edge. So I'm going to try going down to the coarser grit stones and see if I can't get a flat face on all three edges here. Okay, I just put in a lot of strokes on this 300 grit stone and I'm still not touching those edges yet. So I'm going to have to switch to the disc sander on my Shopsmith to regrind these faces flat. I still have some more cutters to hone before I get to regrinding that other one. Let's hope I have better luck with this one. This one I bought new, but I have used it quite a bit already. Perfect. It removed all the ink from the entire surface. So that edge should be sharp. I just now need to do the same to the other two edges. So as long as the faces aren't damaged in any way, this sharpening is super quick. It's time to set up the disc sander on the Shopsmith so I can regrind this shaper cutter. Okay, I think I'm ready to go. I've got my sharpening guide installed. I've made sure that I'm set parallel to the blade. I've also set the depth stop, so hopefully that means I'll be grinding each cutter to the same thickness so that the bit stays in balance. Let's go ahead and get started. This is the cutter that I had just ground on the disc sander. Out here on the business end, where it actually cuts, everything is nice and flat. I think I'm just going to go right to the 1200 grit stone and polish it up a little bit. Okay, it looks like I'm in really good shape here. When these faces are flat, it does not take very many strokes on those diamond stones. Again, I went ahead and started with the 1200 and that's all I needed. Now that all my shaper cutters have been reground and sharpened, it's time to start testing them. I'm going to start with this glue joint bit. If you want more information on how to set up these bits properly, I think Colin Kinnett of Woodwork Web has an excellent video on that topic. I'll provide the link in the description. Okay, so here's the cut with the glue line bit in maple, and you can see it is as crisp as anything. So that is a very good result if you ask me. All I really expect out of these joinery bits is to prepare them as a glue service, and this has well exceeded that. That is crisp and clean and smooth, and the cutting went just fine. Next, I'll be testing this shaper cutter with the double roundover profile on the Shopsmith overhead routing setup. It's a very nice shape, but it looks like I did not hone out all the imperfections in the edge. I'll have to take a look at that. Okay, I think I found the defect. You can sort of see it right here. There's a burr on the back of this bit. So what I'm going to do is take a dowel rod, wrap a piece of sandpaper around it, and just take a stroke on each of these. Then I'm going to lower the bit a little bit and take another pass and see if I can't get something a little smoother. But there's still some grooves here. So there's a defect in that bit that I have not sharpened out yet. I think if I could get that bit sharp, it would be a nice profile, but that's the issue. Next, I'll test the tongue shaper cutter on the Shopsmith overhead routing setup. Not a bad cut. Nice and smooth, everything straight. Do have some burning here though, but that's not uncommon for maple. And now on the speed increaser, I'll test this tongue shaper cutter. That's the result. This one was cut on the overhead router. This one was cut with the speed increaser. Both of these are acceptable for joinery work as far as I'm concerned. While I've got the speed increaser set up, I might as well cut the reciprocal joint to this one, which was the first joint I cut with the overhead router. This is the joint I just cut with the glue line bit on the speed increaser. Very good, very smooth, clean. I took another few swipes with a diamond file at the burrs on this bit, so I'm going to go ahead and try it on the speed increaser since it's set up anyway. So it's doing really the same thing here at 10,000 RPM that it was doing at the 5,000 RPM. So I don't believe that the speed of the machine is the issue. I believe that there's a defect in the edge of that bit. So now that I've done all the testing I want to do with the high-speed steel bits, I think it's wise to compare it to a carbide tip bit. This is a 3-edge carbide tip bit for making tongue and grooves. So I have to say that the carbide router bit I have does a better job at tongue and groove than the tongue and groove bit. Okay, time to talk about conclusions. As I said in the beginning, there is no substitute for a good quality carbide bit. This bit was not that expensive. It was available at my local store. And in terms of functionality, it fully replaces these two shaper cutters. I think the cost of these two cutters together were the same as this cutter here. I will say one advantage to this set is I don't have to play with any shims to get the spacing exactly right. But I do have to say, because I was able to get a good sharpening on these bits, they're perfectly functional. And as long as I can continue to resharpen them accurately, they'll continue to function just fine. They will do the job. On the other hand, these two bits did not function quite right off the bat. I had to regrind this bit to make the faces flat in order to be able to sharpen it properly. And this bit, I've yet to get a proper sharpen on here, and we saw that the profile was heavily grooved due to some sort of burr or defect in one of the faces. So clearly, carbide bits have a place in my wood shop, and I'll continue to invest in high quality bits of this nature as I need them into the future. The high-speed steel bits, on the other hand, are a bit of a question mark. I could see myself, however, buying more of these if there was a profile that I needed for the project that was maybe just too expensive to buy in carbide. Also, if I picked up one of these in the used market at a very good price, I would be tempted to buy it. Now that would be taking a bit of a risk, as I showed in this video. High-speed steel can be cost-effective if you have the wherewithal to keep them sharp. If you can't resharpen, then carbide might be your only choice, because a dull high-speed steel tool is of no use. Well, that does it for my video on the shaper cutters. Thanks for joining me in the Woodshop Nerdery, and I hope to see you next time.